welcome to Going Green. I'm your host, Sarie, and today we're discussing the Florida Keys coral reef. We have two very special guests with us today. Dr. Tim, a noted expert on coral reefs from the University of Florida's Marine Biology Research Institution, and Dr. Joar of the Florida Keys Department of Commerce and Tourism. First off, let me tell you that coral is an animal. It's commonly thought of as a plant or a rock. The Florida Keys is the most visited coral reef in the United States. Before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about why the coral reefs are such an important part of the North Atlantic Ocean's ecosystem. They're important for the survival of a diverse population of animals for several reasons. First, they provide shelter and a central location for plants and animals to interact with one another. The reef can also serve as a hiding place from predators. In addition, coral reefs provide food sources for many different animals. This can be either the algae that grows on the reef or the small fish and crustaceans that are attracted to the reef. An important way that coral reefs protect the environment is by serving as a shoreline buffer. This means that the reef slows down the speed and reduces the force of the waves, which prevents destruction of beaches and deterioration of the shoreline. Reefs also protect the wetlands along the coast, as well as ports and harbors. The health of one part of the reef is also important to maintaining the health of the entire reef. There is a variety of coral bacteria that can cause an infection to one part of the reef, and that infection will spread to other parts. A coral reef's main role for human is with tourism. Through all of the tourism that the reefs attract, a ton of money is raised, which is needed for the economy. In addition, they provide fish and other seafood that people eat, which also provides jobs for fishermen. Along with being used as a source of food, fish are also used as pets, as fish tanks are commonly found in people's homes. Keeping diversity in the coral reefs is important for the animal population, educational purposes, and scientific research for medicine. Because coral reefs protect the shoreline from strong currents, they also slow the waves down, giving the name of barrier reefs. While protecting the shore, the reefs are also protecting houses, agricultural land, and beaches. Joar and Tim will elaborate more on these topics right after the break.
Go to flakeys.com for special savings in the Florida Keys and Key West.
So why is there such a variety of species in the coral reef? Wouldn't natural selection just pick the coral that has the best adaptations for surviving in their environment?
Well, there are many different fish that survive by doing the same thing or something very similar. A lot of fish get their food the same way, and that is one reason there's such a variety, and natural selection is to just pick the most fit. Another is that coral reefs have a wide variety of fish. However, one type of fish is dominant in one area and another type of fish is dominant in another area, so fish aren't competing as much for food.
So we mentioned earlier how the coral reef is important for the animals and plants that share its ecosystem. How do coral and fish rely on each other for survival?
Fish and coral are interdependent on each other, which means that they rely on each other. A good example of interdependence is between fish and anemones. Anemones form relationships with some clownfish, which happen when a clownfish performs a ceremonial dance until the anemone accepts the clownfish, and then a relationship forms. The anemones have special chemicals that it releases to prevent the clownfish by being stung by the anemone's tentacles. The anemones provide shelter and protection to the clownfish or predator. In return, the clownfish clean the anemones from parasites.
So are there any special adaptations that only coral reef fish have?
Yes, as the habitat of a coral reef is different from the habitat in open waters, coral reef fish have different adaptations to deal with this. Fish in open waters have a shape similar to a torpedo, which allows for a very low amount of drag, allowing them to travel very quickly through the water. Most coral reef fish are flat and shaped like a pancake, which allows for more maneuverability but at the cost of speed. This is because in open waters, fish rely on speed to evade predators and catch prey. However, in coral reef, their maneuverability is more key, as fish can maneuver in and out of the maze of coral. In addition to body configuration, fish have some special coloration that is much different from normal fish in open waters. Some of this strange coloration can serve a few different purposes. The first is for sexual selection. In coral reefs, there are so many different fish that it becomes difficult to tell who's who and find a mate, so fish have developed some coloration that more easily allow them to identify each other. The second reason that coral reef fish have strange coloration is to warn other predators to stay away. Colorations like this are warning patterns and can work in different ways, from the lionfish, where the stripes make it look dangerous, or eye spots that make smaller fish appear much larger. Other than body shape and coloration, some fish have developed more specialized structures, such as beaks and long mouths with many sharp teeth to get food. Coral reef fish are really very special and unique in the way that they operate.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tim. That was a lot of really great information. We'll be back with Dr. Joar. Dr. Joar, thank you for being with us today. So as you know, here at Going Green, we're not just interested in learning about the environment. We also want to discuss ways in which it's being harmed and how we can protect it. So tell us, how is it being harmed? We do know that tourism and global warming has been taking an effect on the coral. So what are the downsides of land tourism?
So there are multiple damages that come from land tourism. One can be divers. Divers, when they have two problems, sometimes they will just break off coral, which it can damage it, and sometimes they will shoot down just by not knowing how to dive properly and break off coral by hitting it. There are two more downsides of land tourism. You have tourist structures such as piers to walk around, just tour and find interesting and stuff like that. And they also need hotels to just keep to house them in, which when being built that can damage. They're built right on the sea, so they will have more buyers to watch to get rooms. And while being built, the rubble of the structure can fall into the ocean and kill the coral.
So what are the downsides of cruise ships then, if land tourism is such a problem?
Well, cruise ships actually are much more damaging than land tourism. Cruise ships, you can imagine them like a town, and towns need a place to put garbage. They put this garbage into the water. So, all this garbage, and it can include toiletries, it can include the silverware, even power tools, medicine, all kinds of stuff. And obviously this is going to be quite damaging to the coral. So, one thing is you got to remember to be extremely careful of putting where you put your items. Like, do not just be careful not to just throw them into the ocean.
Right. So just any trash or any waste from cruise ships that's dumped into the ocean? Right. So how does global warming affect coral reefs, if it does?
Well, assuming we all know that global warming heats up, it's heating up the world. Well, while it does, and it heats up the water, it causes an effect called bleaching. Bleaching is a reaction where when the water is heated, it causes the coral reef to spit out its symbiotic algae, which gives it its color and its nutrients. So as it spits this out, it loses those too. Now, usually during a short period of time, it's okay because it can recover the algae and recover its color and the nutrients. But as global warming occurs, the heat is extended for a prolonged period of time, and it can never recover its algae, causing it to die.
Oh wow! Oh my goodness. So since tourism and cruise ships are such a big problem to the reefs, how can people stop being so harming to them?
Well, for one, you can be careful. Like I said earlier, you can be careful of where you put your garbage, like plastic bottles. Make sure to put them in a recycle bin or garbage can, not just on the beach or in the water. Also, if you are diving, make sure to be aware of your surroundings. Don't just be reckless and crash into coral. Also, be careful of just breaking off coral purposely, because not only does it kill the coral, it's also illegal in some places. So you can get arrested and stuff for breaking it off. Also, don't forget fishing. If you're going to fish, if you just have to fish, go out away from the coral, because this can damage coral. So just take your fishing boat and go further out from the coral reefs. Finally, try not to go touring as much. You can still tour, but just try not to go as much. It's good. It's good to tour. Just yeah, and I mean not only that, also the planes themselves produce a massive amount of CO2 that will go up in the atmosphere. So I mean you'll be helping global warming and the coral if you just tour this.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Joar. A big thank you to Dr. Tim and Dr. Joar for joining us on the show today. We learned all about the coral reef and its importance and its inhabitants. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode of Going Green. Thank you.